By 2050, it's predicted that there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Think about that for a second, plastic outweighing life itself. But here's the part no one talks about. The problem is even bigger and more complex than we've been led to believe. When we think of ocean plastic, most of us imagine those viral images of turtles tangled in straws or plastic bags drifting like jellyfish. But what if I told you that straws and bags are just the tip of the iceberg? In fact, most of the plastic in our oceans doesn't even come from these sources. The reality of ocean plastic pollution is much darker, far-reaching, and deeply misunderstood. Let's be honest, how many of us have tried switching to paper straws, thinking we're making a difference, only to find it doesn't hold up after a few sips? We've been told that banning plastic straws is key to saving the oceans. But guess what? Plastic straws only make up 0.03% of the total ocean plastic. That's right, 0.03%. Yet, we're focusing on them like they're the biggest villain in this story. While we debate whether to use metal or bamboo straws, 46% of the plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch comes from something far more insidious: ghost nets. These are abandoned fishing nets that keep fishing long after they've been discarded. Imagine a net drifting aimlessly, trapping sea life year after year, decimating marine ecosystems. It's a silent killer, and yet we're still obsessing over the little things like plastic cutlery. So, where is all this plastic coming from, really? To understand the full scope of ocean plastic pollution, we need to follow the plastic from its source. It starts in cities, industrial areas, and most significantly, in regions with limited waste management systems. Developing nations in Asia and Africa are responsible for the bulk of plastic waste entering the oceans, but it's not entirely their fault. In places like the Philippines, Indonesia, and India, rapid urbanization has led to mountains of waste, but the infrastructure to handle it hasn't kept up. In fact, 90% of all plastic entering the ocean flows from just 10 rivers, 8 of which are in Asia. These rivers are lifelines for millions of people, but they've also become conveyor belts for waste. But don't think this lets the rest of the world off the hook. Developed nations, including the US and Europe, are still major contributors. We often export our plastic waste to countries with fewer regulations, effectively outsourcing the problem. And once it's out of sight, it becomes easy to forget. And then there are the microplastics, tiny, invisible fragments that make up the majority of ocean plastic by number. These particles are so small, they slip through filters and end up not just in the ocean, but in the water we drink, the air we breathe, and even the food we eat. Scientists have found microplastics in the most remote corners of the planet, from the deepest ocean trenches to the pristine Arctic. It's everywhere. So, even if you live far from the coast, the plastic you use could still be making its way into the ocean ecosystem. These microplastics don't just float around harmlessly. They're ingested by marine life, working their way up the food chain, and eventually into us. Studies have shown that seafood eaters could be ingesting thousands of microplastic particles each year. The ocean is slowly becoming a plastic soup, and we're all eating from it. Let's recap some of the most staggering facts. Every minute, an entire garbage truck full of plastic is dumped into the ocean. That's enough plastic to fill a football field in just an hour. And as we've mentioned, almost half of the plastic in ocean gyres, like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, is discarded fishing gear. Since plastic doesn't biodegrade, every piece ever made is still out there somewhere. And here's a sobering thought: if we continue on this path, by 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean by weight than fish. Think about that ocean's dominated not by the life that has existed there for millions of years, but by human waste less than a century old. What's your experience with plastic pollution? Whether you live by the ocean or miles inland, chances are you've seen the effects. Drop a comment below and share your story. I want to hear what it's like in your part of the world and how we can work together to make a change. The most haunting truth? Long after we're gone, the plastic we've made will remain. It takes hundreds of years to break down, and even then, it never fully disappears, it just gets smaller, infiltrating everything. The ocean is becoming a graveyard for plastic, and if we don't act soon, it could also become a graveyard for life. But it's not all doom and gloom. We have the power to change this. It starts with understanding the real problem, recognizing that while individual actions help, we need systemic change. From better waste management in developing countries to holding corporations accountable for their role in plastic production and pollution. There's also exciting innovation happening, new technologies that can help clean our oceans, and new materials that can replace harmful plastics. The fight against ocean plastic pollution requires all of us, from governments to corporations to individuals. By rethinking how we use and dispose of plastic, we can turn the tide on this crisis. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to like it and subscribe for more deep dives into the environmental issues that affect us all. And don't stop here, check out our next video on real solutions to the plastic problem. Together, we can make a difference. Share this video with your friends and family. Let's spread the word, raise awareness, and work towards cleaner oceans.